The Art of Being Ruled. Wyndham Lewis. Original publication 1926. 1989 edition. Narrated by Skeptical Waves. Part 7. The Family and Feminism. Chapter 3. The Woman, Proudhon's only revolutionary discovery. Proudhon vaunted the Latin, the Roman heritage. He was very fond of returning to the law-giving and law-loving, fond of the French nature, the Roman in his inheritance. No Roman father could have devised more despotic conditions than he did for the woman. He even, cf. La Pornocratie, in the true fashion of Roman antiquity, would have given the husband power of life and death over the wife. But with a slave system, and the terrible patria potestas, the Roman was very successful politically. It is not Christian principles, which is the same as socialist principles, that make a state great. And Proudhon, in the condition of complete mental confusion in which the European has remained ever since his turbulent egotism and Western and Northern push tied itself up to its opposite, Christianity, was all for a great and even warlike city, on the antique, pagan, pattern. Let us say that women are men with a handicap. It is a natural handicap. Proudhon was a fine example of the natural man. Nothing would have convinced him of the reasonableness of removing the handicap socially, surgically. For, being the natural man, he hated uniformity. Everything would seem for him, as for Sorel, to gain in force and power by differentiation. And everything about him was highly reasonable, all but his socialism, which was a madness he never completely overcame. That was the Christian overlay, beneath which the pagan and Roman limbs could be seen perpetually moving, evidently with iron discipline, to the most warlike and primitive airs. So, as Proudhon regarded himself as eminently of the party of revolt, the only way in which he was not a revolutionary, he might have supposed, was in his anti-feminism. The woman was the only revolutionary that he challenged. But on the principle which impelled him to challenge her, he could have challenged equally every item of the revolutionary program that he so ardently supported, and so become a unique revolutionary. The idea of government, he says, is modeled on the experience of the family. Its tenacity is owing to the fact that men have always had under their eyes the small model of the state in their own family circle. The family is the embryo of the state. The father is the king, the mother is the minister of state, the child is the subject. Thus the fundamental age and sex categories have regulated, immemorially, the notion of government. That is the reason why, he says, idée générale de la révolution au XIXe siècle, the fraternist socialists, who take the family as the model of society, all arrived at the idea of dictatorship, the most exaggerated form of government. He finishes by asking, how long will it take us to understand this affiliation of ideas? It is, however, an attempt to trace the affiliation, the family relationship, as it were, of all these revolutionary ideas, that has occupied us throughout this essay. Proudhon never understood, apparently, any affiliation except that of the man and woman. The woman was his sole philosophic discovery. She shook him, apparently, out of his conventional utopia. For some reason he saw her very clearly indeed. And his attitude to her was in direct contradiction to all his anarchist teaching, although very much in agreement with all his highly non-revolutionary instincts. Above we have seen him setting out to show, in his chapter on the principle of authority, that men have always gone wrong in their revolutionary activities because they have insisted on modeling their idea of the state on the obvious family paradigm. From the obsessing image of the family they have not been able to escape. So it is that, no sooner is one despotism, modeled on the traditional family, cast down, then another equally despotic is set up in its place. Of all the great revolutionaries of the last century, Proudhon dogmatized the most about the family, in the opposite sense to most of his revolutionary contemporaries. The family must at all costs be retained, that was one of the cornerstones of his system. Alone the family was able to guarantee freedom, and stood between despotism and mankind. And yet above we see him indicating it as the model of all governmental despotism.